Talk listeners, KTIK, The Ticket. Appreciate everybody always tuning in to Sports Radio, The Ticket. We're Prater on the ball game. And Prater, before we take a deep dive into some Boise State spring football observations, a bench pressing, a madman, and the kicker that thankfully just won't go away for Boise State fans. But first, I want to talk. You talked about the numbers of the game last night, Iowa versus LSU. They did come out, and it was the most viewed women's college basketball game ever. But I don't think that quite put it in its proper perspective of just how many people watched last night's game.
Yeah, I mean, they talked about the World Series last year. It surpassed every single game in the World Series last year. It surpassed 4 out of the 5 NBA Finals games. And I'm going to say something, and JP, close your ears or don't fall down, or whoever that guy is hanging out with you in your corner over there, job shadowing you.
His name's Michael.
Michael, maybe you need to take care of JP and he doesn't fall over. But there was more people watching Caitlin Clark last night than the Masters final round last year.
That wouldn't surprise me at all, Brad. It doesn't surprise me at all.
On a Sunday at the Masters. I mean, throw in most conference championship games in college football. Only the SEC conference championship game had more viewers than Caitlin Clark last night. That means the ACC, the Big 12, the Pac-12, Prater. Yeah. I mean, the Big 10. More people watched this game last night than the Big 10 championship game. The number that really took me by surprise, though, was every NBA Finals game but one, and every World Series game. That put it into perspective. And Prater, you think Friday night's game, Caitlin Clark, Iowa versus UConn, Gina Wariema, you think it's going to get more than the 12.3 million viewers that they say last night?
Yeah, it'll push 15, and Sunday might even push 20. So the World Series part and the NBA Finals part shouldn't surprise you, ball game. The attendance and the viewership, not the attendance, the viewership for those two sporting events have been spiraling or at best stagnant for 15, 20, 30 years. I mean, it's not good. And as much as last night was great, and as much as we're all kind of getting sucked into Caitlin Clark fever, it's a one-off. Well, let's see she's growing the sport. It's beautiful. We're all getting sucked in. Hopefully the collateral damage next year is more people watching this sport, which is really advanced. But, when we compare it to like the SEC championship games or bowl games or Orange Bowls, those games are consistent and they're growing and they're always dependable in terms of their television viewing audience. Last night was a one-off because of one magical athlete that we've all got sucked into. So, it's taken a long time. Until last night, the most watched women's basketball player of all time was Cheryl Miller. 40 years ago, 30 years ago, or whatever that was.
USC.
She was number 1 and she was number 2 in terms of all-time viewership, in terms of a single game. And it's taken that long to beat that. So Caitlin Clark is that magical athlete, and we can't wait to see what she does this weekend. But at least, if you're the traditional male football, basketball, baseball, ball kinds of sports guy, your sports that we're comparing it to are steady and consistent and growing and will always be there. And hopefully women's basketball can continue to grow.
208-424-9300 on our Cloverdale Plumbing text line. You watched last night, your thoughts. You certainly can't say, well, she's overrated. No, she dropped 41 points and was 9 for 20 3-point attempts and hit 9 of them. So we'll read some of those texts as they come in. Prater, let's get to Boise State football. We were both at practice today. We both had a chance to talk with Jonah Dalmas after practice, the Boise State kicker. And I love athletes that want history. I love athletes who want to know where they stand and want to pursue all-time records and not the whole, hey, I'm just here to be a good teammate. Whatever records come, they come. It's more about, Jonah Dalmas was not talking like that today. He wants history, Mike Prater. I love it.
Yeah, and it's really one of 2 reasons why he came back, and he talked about that today. He wanted to come back and play football with what he calls his brothers, and he's always been consistent there, and that's why he's so loved. He's always a team-first guy. But when we start grilling him about the records and he doesn't give you the cliche answer, It's really cool, especially when he starts talking in first person. I love people that talk in first person. And he kept referring to himself as the freshman Jonah Dalmas. This is what the freshman Jonah Dalmas wanted. This is what the freshman Jonah Dalmas envisioned when he was going to be a senior at Boise State. And it was pretty funny to hear. He shows up in his Bass Pro Shop fishing hat. There's a free plug. He didn't get an NIL deal for that. He just looked kind of the part.
He just likes the hat, and he's a fan of Bass Pro Shops.
Yeah, and it was really, really cool. And we all just love that dude. He holds almost every kicking record at Boise State. Him and Brotzman will go down as the two best kickers in the history of that school.
Yep.
He's gotten most of those records. Jonah Dalmas does. He's got a few more to eclipse. The two main records that he's chasing, guys, and you're going to hear some clips from him here in a second. He needs 4 field goals to tie the Mountain West record currently held by Brandon Talton. He's the kicker out of Nevada just this past 5 years. He has 83. Jonah Dalmas has a school record 80. So he's got 80. That's the Boise State record. He needs 4 more to tie the Mountain West record.
You mean?
And he needs 90, and he needs 18 more. And he's always had more than 20 in his career outside of that first year. But 18 more to set the NCAA record held by North Carolina State's Christopher Dunn. And that record was set in 2022. Jonah Dalmas is going to go down, if knock on wood, if he stays healthy, as the greatest kicker in Boise State history, and statistically the greatest kicker in college football history.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the percentages too, Prater. I mean, Jonah Dalmas' career, he's attempted 90 field goals. He's made 80 of them. Math majors, that's 89%.
89.9%.
Well, I wasn't going to count the decimal points, but I'm glad you threw it in there. And his longest kick is also the school record, tied for the longest field goal in Boise State history at 56 yards. I'd love to see Jonah at some point have an opportunity to kick one from 57 or longer.
Nobody in the Mountain West has ever kicked a 60-yard field goal.
That's crazy because of the elevation. You'd think the Mountain West kickers would kick the farthest field goals in the country.
And the guy who holds the record was an Air Force kicker. So they're at home.
Yeah.
He did it at home. I believe the record in the Mountain West is 59. Maybe it might be 58.
Here's the other thing about Jonah. And, COVID. Yeah. Okay. Well, Christopher Dunn and Brandon Talton were both COVID players.
Yeah.
So that doesn't mean anything to me as much as it might for some others. But let's get to Jonah. He talked about it. We talked to him halfway through spring camp. Does Jonah Dalmas still believe that coming back for another year was the right decision?
This is 100%, the best decision for me. I'm all about, making the best decision, and I've had talks with Coach D, my family, and my wife about all these decisions that I've decided to make. And I just saw it best fit for me to, come back for one more year to break more records, to do, what freshman Jonah said at the very beginning. And like I said, I'm not satisfied, and I had one more year to do it, and so I wanted to come back and do that before I chase my dream.
God, I love that, man. A freshman Jonah. I didn't catch the first person, but there's the reference right there.
He's got at least one more, maybe even 2 more in that interview. It was only like a 7-minute interview. And as he was talking today, I just kept thinking about that October day in 2020 COVID season. Here comes that stupid football game against Utah State that we all waited for years. And some long-haired dude walks out on the field, and we all looked at each other in the press box. Who the hell is that? We had no idea who this guy was. Long hair flowing out. And it's some soccer kid from Rocky Mountain. I go, great. They got a soccer player for a kicker.
Came back from a mission, didn't know about him for a couple of years. He's walking on, and he won the kicker job. And we're like, oh, shnikes, Boise State's going to stink a kicker this year.
Wow.
Right?
How wrong were we? Not necessarily wrong, because we were just confused who this person was.
Yeah, they had a no-name new kicker who was was a soccer player coming off a Mormon mission and was a walk-on.
Yeah. And it kind of turned out okay, didn't it?
Oh my gosh, man! We'll be talking about Jonah in this town for a long time, and I just love the fact that I want my favorite players to want to break records. Prater, I love the fact that he's out there, Jonah Dalmas, front and center. I came back for 2 reasons: I love my brothers, and I want to shatter records. Jonah Dalmas talked about chasing 2 significant records that Mike Prater talked about. The Mountain West and the NCAA career field goals made record. How important is that to you?
Absolutely. I think that's a huge reason why I came back too for one more year. I had those goals from my freshman year to become the best kicker in Boise State history and in college football history. And so kind of having that vision in front of me is exciting for me because those are the goals I set out when I was, freshman Jonah. And so having that in front of me is something I want to chase and fulfill that goal.
This is the time of year you can do it, but have you actually charted the 2 or 3 records and the goals that you want to chase? Or
I just I don't like chart them. I know they're kind of in front of me because people talk about it, but I want to continue to have that chip on my shoulder and stay aggressive when I'm out on the field. And, if it ends up happening, it happens. And, but that's something I look forward to. Those are things that I chase. Those are the things that keep me aggressive and confident when I go out there. And most importantly, those are the things I, have in front of me that keeps me, having a purpose when I go out there.
There's Jonah Dalmas again, having a purpose, going out there. And Prater, how big of a deal do you think that will be for Bronco Nation? Let's just say it's, I don't know, November 9th, a home game this year against Nevada. And Jonah Dalmas, through the uprights, gets his 18th made field goal of the year at that point and becomes number 1 all-time in the NCAA. If that moment is at home on the blue, how big a deal you think that'll be?
Oh, I mean, that'll be cool. I mean, it depends on if they stop and celebrate. Some athletes like that, some don't. And, and there's plenty of people that always just a kicker, blah, blah, blah. But it's not the sexiest record, but it's a big-time record. And not a lot of Boise State guys own national NCAA college football records. So I think it'll be a big deal. We'll make a big deal of it. We'll certainly make a big deal of it here. We'll have a little countdown, a little watch. He's a local athlete. We love him. He represents. He's going to be a rock star in this community for the next 50 years. And absolutely, it'll be a big deal. So, I hope it does happen at home, and I hope they do make a big deal of it.
All right, Jonah, do you think about you and James Ferguson Reynolds becoming the best kicker-punter duo, not just in this school history or in this school, but in the country?
Absolutely. I think James and I, have the potential to be number 1 kicker and punter in the nation. We talk about that pretty frequently just because we want to continue to motivate each other and, keep a high standard for one another. But I think absolutely we have the potential to do just that.
How much have you seen him? I don't know if you felt you got snubbed from the Guy Award last year, but just like how have you seen him this offseason working to improve?
Yeah, I mean, like Rasta will tell us all the time, chip on the shoulder. And, that's our mentality when we go on, chip on the shoulder. Like me and James tell each other we're never satisfied. So when we go out on the field, we're never satisfied. There's always something more we can do. We can always get 1% better every time we go out on the field. And that's just our role, is just to make an impact to this team and make sure that we're in the best position possible.
Who goes to the pros? Who's NFL player? JFR, Jonah Dalmas, dude. It feels like they both got a great chance, Prater.
Well, no, I wouldn't say they're great at all.
Okay.
Great's not, no.
They both have a chance?
Well, yeah, and I'm only saying that because there's less than 5 jobs available every year.
About that. In that league, you're right.
Yeah, so they got a slim chance, dude. Very, very slim chance. But to say you even have a chance is the accomplishment, and they're both going to get massive chances. I think James Ferguson Reynolds he's got a monster leg.
Oh man,
he places it well. It comes off differently. He's going to blow scouts away, and they're going to look at him and say, "Okay, this guy is a difference maker." Jonah Dalmas, as much as we love him and how good he is and how consistent he is, coaches are going to say, I've seen a lot of kickers like Jonah Dalmas. They just, good, steady, and the NFL is full of them. They're both going to get their shot. If I had to pick one that would make it, I would probably guess James Ferguson Reynolds. But, man, if Jonah Dalmas can make the NFL as a kicker, holy cow, that'd be awesome.
Wouldn't that be cool? Jonah Dalmas, again, spoke to the media today, talked about continuing to work on leg strength and distance.
Yeah, I want to continue to get as much distance as possible. Be reliable in the 50-yard, 50-plus yard, 55-plus yard. Just kind of that, that mentality that anywhere we're at on the field, making sure that we, come out with points. And I want to be that guy. If we send me on the field, I want to, put it through and impact our team.
That's him. That's the guy. And that was a big emphasis last year. And he showed us last year with that school record kick. Yeah. Consistently. I mean, he didn't get a ton of chances over 50 yards, but he came through. And he showed us that leg strength. I think he needs to take it to another level. I'd like to see a 60 on the board this year. That will capture people's attention. Yeah. There's no doubt about that. So get him into a camp and see what he can do. He's going to get into a camp no matter what, but his mentality, his teammates, his teamwork, his work ethic, all that stuff, it's off the charts. And Jonah Dalmas he's the man. Look, I love it.
Is Jonah Dalmas your favorite kicker in Boise State history? That's probably a stupid question to ask on the Cloverdale Plumbing text line, but anything you want to throw in regarding Jonah Dalmas, go ahead and do that. Yeah, Prater, that's the one thing for me on Jonah. We're seeing guys in spring football, UFL leagues kick 64-yard field goals. It feels to me that if you're going to be in the NFL as a place kicker now, they need 60-yarders whenever they need them.
NFL 60-yard field goals are kind of like Major League Baseball no-hitters.
Kind of, yeah, no, absolutely.
Ho-hum.
Yeah, it's not that big a deal anymore.
Yeah.
Have they been able to, yep.
That's why you need to, well, I shouldn't say need to. He's going to get a chance whether he kicks a 60-yard field goal or not. That will capture the scouts' attention, though, because they like to look at that number. And if he can get a 60 on the board, that'd be spectacular.
Absolutely. Ahmed Hassanin, Prater. We're going to dive into him a little bit, and he is a bench pressing absolute assassin.
When we were in the weight room last week watching Pro Day, they have this chart on the wall. And I've been going to Pro Day, I think, for many, many years. But since COVID and since they let us back into the building for the last, 3 or 4 years, I've been taking a picture of this standard chart that they have in the Boise State weight room. And it lists, who's the top 5 bench pressers, who's the top 5 squats, who's the top 5 body weight ratio stuff. Long jumpers, broad jumpers, all that kind of stuff. I saw Ahmed Hassanin's name on top of a list, and he was so much better than everybody else. It kind of blew me away. So I did a little sniffing around today.
Just dominating. And who wasn't at practice today? We'll get to that when we come back. We're Prater on the Ballgame, Idaho Sports Talk, KTIK, The Ticket.
From the Beacon Plumbing Traffic Studios, this is Ticket Traffic.